Okay, our next topic is the social forestry. As you know, in the last video lecture, we have studied about the deforestation, and before the deforestation, we have also studied about the afforestation. Okay, so relating with the deforestation and the afforestation, there is another topic which is called as the social forestry. And from the heading, you can understand that the social life is closely attached with this kind of the forestry. So, in this particular video lecture, we should understand what do you mean by the social forestry. Okay, what are the different types of the social forestry? And what are the different advantages or the benefits of this particular social forestry. From the UPSC mains examination point of view, this topic will be of a high importance because majority of the time the topics in the ecology which connects with the social life are most often asked by the UPSC in the mains examination. Okay, so that is why these types of the topic become very important, and you should know the clear cut theory regarding this particular social forestry type. Okay, so this type of topics are of important from the UPSC mains examination point of view. Now consider this is our syllabus. We are dealing with the paper number 2 and the chapter number 5, that is ecology and the plant geography. And we are here at the social forestry. Okay, before this we have covered all of the topics. These all topics are covered, and already these topics are on the channel. If you haven't checked out this, please check out this before checking this particular video lecture. Okay, so let us consider the first introductory point, that the social forestry refers to the management of the forest for the benefits of the local communities. So literally the local communities or the people which are there in the community are typically connected with that of the social forestry, and that is why we use the term social. Okay, for this type of forestry we are using the word social forestry because this is the management of forest for the benefits of the local communities or for the local people. Now it includes the forest management, then the forest protection, and plus the afforestation of the deforested lands with the objective of improving the rural, environmental and the social life. So basically what we do in this particular social forestry, here we manage the forest. Okay, what is the whatever the nearby forest is there, we manage that forest, we try to protect that forest, we also try to do the things like the afforestation or the reforestation for the purpose of improving the rural life, then the environmental life and the social life. Okay, all these kinds of the lives should get improved through this program. This is the ultimate objective of the social forestry. So basically we do the social forestry for the benefits of local people, and not only it is benefiting the local people, but it also very helpful for the environment and the social life point of view. Okay, see, in the social forestry, the needs of the local communities are given the first priority. Now, see, whenever we talk about the social forestry, the needs of the local community, okay, whatever the local community is living there, what are their needs, and these needs can be fulfilled through these forestry programs. That is given the first priority. That is, in the any local area where we want to do the social forestry, there we should understand what are the ultimate needs of these local peoples, which type of the forest product can fulfill their any type of the food requirement or any type of the job requirement. According to that we should create the forest. Okay, so that is why in the social forestry always we first study the local people, the local community, whatever the local community is there, that local community we have to understand their needs, and according to these needs we should create the community forest or the social forestry. And hence the main goal of the forestry is to grow trees and plantation to meet the growing needs of the people in reference to the increased demand for the timber, then the wood, then the food, fuel, and the food. Okay, to reduce the pressure and dependency on the traditional forest areas. So basically, what we are doing here, for example, see, this is a large area, and in this portion of the area there is a natural forest. Okay, this is the natural forest, and all the people are living nearby this particular forest. Now, whatever the needs of these people, which is located at the nearby forest, they will take all their needs from this particular forest, whether it is the timber, whether it's a wood, whether it is a food or whether it's a fuel. Okay, so all types of the requirement are taking these people from this particular nearby forest. But if you want to take off the pressure from this nearby forest, then we should create the community forest or the social forestry. For example, in this particular area we have planted the trees which will give the timber. Okay, so timber trees were planted here, plus also the food trees were also here, and the fuel trees are also here. So ultimately the people will take their needs from this forest which is created artificially, and in the process this will reduce the whatever pressure which is there on the natural forest. So in the natural forest, if you want to avoid the pressure which is building on this natural forest, we should create the social forest in accordance with the need of the people of the local community. The need may be the timber, maybe in the form of timber, maybe in the form of food or the fuel. Okay, it will all depend on the local community. So according to that local community, we should create the forest which will be providing all the necessary items which are required by the local community. right? Now consider, see, the practice of the social forestry is also aims to protect the agriculture from the adverse climatic condition by improving the environment. As you know, nowadays we have the concept like global warming. Okay, we have global warming where the side effect of it is the acid rains like concept, right? Acid rains are there, then the eutrophication are there, the biomagnifications are there. All these are having the very negative effect on the agriculture. So basically, if you do the social forestry, we can reduce these adverse climatic conditions. So social forestry is not only limited to the local people or to the environment only, it is also contributing to the agriculture. In the on the one hand, the agriculture is get saved, on the other hand, the natural forestry has also got saved. So you can say the social forestry is playing a major role in controlling the adverse climatic conditions, right? Then the increase, it will also increase the natural beauty and increasing the supply of the forest produce to the local use. So basically what we try to say here, the social forestry is the multi-dimensional concept. It can avoid the global warming, it can provide the positive values to the agriculture, it can provide the positive values to the natural forest. So all these types of the advantages are there for doing the social forestry in relation with the local community of the people. Okay, now all through the concept and the practice of the social forestry, it is existed for centuries. Okay, it is not the new concept. Before also, since the centuries, we are planting the trees according to our need in our agricultural field or the nearby area. Okay, it is not the new thing, but it is constantly getting a new dimension because of its benefit, including the potential for tackling the challenges of global warming. So basically, from the centuries we are doing this, but nowadays in the 20th century, in the 21st century, in the 2021, simply the problem of the global warming is heavily increasing. And you know from the your current affairs studies that how the environmental impact is there due to the industrialization. Now, to tackle this new problem, social forestry can be of a very high value, and that is why this social forestry gaining importance day by day. And it will literally can provide the multidimensional benefits in relation to the environment, agriculture, and all types of the practices which are there in the community. Okay, and so that is why this particular social forestry concept is gaining popularity due to the global warming which is occurring nowadays. Okay, now see the types of the social forestry. Let us consider which are the different types of the social forestry. The very first is the agroforestry. Well, it involves the growth of the trees and the agriculture in the same setting to provide the landowner with the agriculture and the tree product on the commercial basis. So as the name suggests, it's the agroforestry. Okay, it is a combination of agriculture plus the forestry. Okay, that is the agricultural product along with the forestry product are grown together. Whatever the agricultural crops are there, these crops are sown in the agricultural field, plus also some portion is given to the forestry where the typical trees are grown there, which can create the many economic values. So the crop field and the forestry field is together in the agroforestry. Okay, so basically in the agroforestry, what we do, we use our agricultural land for the agriculture as well as for the forestry purpose. So here the landowner can achieve the two aims here. The very first is they can attract, they can create the many agricultural crops with the same time, at the same time they can also produce the some commercial product out of the forestry practice. So basically here you should understand the agriculture and the forestry can be together at a one field, and this particular type of the forestry is called as the agroforestry. Now the very objective of this particular agroforestry is to gain the positive interaction between the two systems, that is the agro system and the forestry system. These are two kinds of the system must be interact together, and it should give some positive output. This is the basic aim of the agroforestry. Now the system can be separate or physically integrated within the single business enterprise. Okay, agriculture can have separate value and the forestry can have separate value, or they can be combined together to create the economic product or the commercial products. Okay, so basically the very first type of the forestry is the agroforestry. In the agroforestry, what we do, we use our agricultural land for the crop purpose plus also for the forestry purpose. Then consider the second type of the forestry, which is called as the farm forestry. In this particular farm forestry, the objective is to manage the trees of a specific purpose within the farming context. Okay, so if there is a typical characteristics to the farm land, according to the typical characteristics, we can also manage some trees along with these typical crops which we are sowing on every year basis. Okay, so not only crops but also the typical trees are grown along with the each other so that we can have output from the both. Now the common purpose is usually the timber plantation on the private lands. Okay, whatever the private lands are there, the timber plantation type of the forestry is often seen, and this type of forestry which we are doing for a specific objective. Okay, and this specific objective, for example, can be the timber plantation. We can plant the trees which will only give us the timber. So this type of the forestry is called as the farm forestry. okay, on the private lands, of course. But the setup can be applied to the range of enterprises that can be managed in a variety of ways using the different parts of the trees. So basically, different parts of the trees will produce the different kinds of the economic product, and according to that, the different types of the prices can be managed. So basically, one tree can also give you the different types of the economic product. But basically, if you are doing it for one purpose, that is, you are planting the timber on the private land for the timber purpose only, then this type of the forestry is considered as a farm forestry. So this is the second type of forestry. Okay, let us consider the third one. It's the extension forestry. Now it is increasingly becoming common in the urban centers and most of the living estates. Now see why. It involves the planting of trees on the sides of the canals, then the roads, railways, as well as on the wasteland. So basically, if you use the area of a canals, the area along the roadsides, or the area of a railways, or the area of a wasteland for planting the trees and taking the economic benefit out of it, then such a type of forestry is called as the extension forestry, and that is why we are using the word extension, because this particular extension word is giving here the extension alongside the road, extension alongside the railway routes, extension alongside the canals, okay, or the wasteland simply, and we can use this empty land to create the forestry, and this type of forestry is called as the extension forestry. Now this type of social forestry is beneficial for the creation of forest on the common village lands. Okay, the common village lands can be occupied by these extension forestry, or the panchayat lands, or the government wasteland. All of these lands can be typically used for creating this particular type of the extension forestry. So basically, on the in the one type we are using the private lands, while on the other type we are using the government lands. Okay, so basically you have to understand the difference between the different types of the social forestry. Okay, the farm forestry is different, agroforestry is different, and the extension forestry is different. All right, now consider the fourth type of the community social forestry, which is called as the community forestry. Now this type of the forestry refers to the management of the communal land. Okay, that is why it is called as the community forestry. Okay, the village members are collectively decide and implement the project of the communal land. For example, there is a village, and there are almost 100 families living there. Okay, out of this 40 families came together, and that they were decided to do the community forestry. All of the land which belongs to these 40 families, they will give this land for this particular community forestry, and whatever the output is going to come out of it commercially, it will be distributed among these 40 families. Okay, so in this way we can also do the community forestry by taking all the lands together at one place, by having the common agreement between the people, and we can grow economically important crop plants into these particular fields, and that is why it become very productive from the area point of view, because the farms of the 40 families can create a very large area, and the large produce can be there. Okay, now the local population takes part in the planning, management, and harvesting of the forest crops. Okay, so whatever the forest product is there, or whatever the forest crops are there, all of the population which belongs to that particular nearby community will involved in this process, and they can take out the positive economic advantage out of it, and they can distribute between themselves. Okay, and that is why this fourth type of the social forestry is called as the community forestry, because community of people is involved. Okay, now let us consider what are the different benefits of this social forestry. Okay, how it benefits to the environment, how it benefits to in relation to global warming, how it benefits to the local people. Okay, now the very first advantage of it is the increased biodiversity. Now this is the common sense. Once we plant the trees to create the forest, this forest will ultimately have the many plant species. Okay, the small plants can grow on the ground, the large trees can grow in the air, and these large trees will have the timber production out of it, or it may give some other economic forest product. Okay, and at the same time, once the large trees and the small trees are there, it will create the habitat for the other people. Okay, whatever the habitat is there which is created, different animals can use this habitat for their living purpose. So not only they are getting food out of it, they were also having the shelter out of it, and that is why it became very, very important for the animal life to have this forest. Okay, so once the forest is got created, the combination of flora and fauna is there, and this flora and fauna living together, and hence maintaining the biodiversity. So the land which was earlier barren land, and now we have the forest there, plus the flora and the fauna is living together and creating the biodiversity. So basically, increased biodiversity is the characteristic feature of the social forestry, because this particular biodiversity, it will also encourage the habitation by the various animals, plants, shrubs, insects, birds, among the others. Okay, all of this can visit here, and all of this can participate to create the very healthy biodiversity. So increased biodiversity. This is the first benefit of social forestry. Now the second one is the carbon removal, and you know how, because once on the barren land, if you plant the many trees, these trees will automatically start doing the photosynthesis. Okay, and in the process of photosynthesis, you know what plant do? They take out the CO2 from the environment and use this CO2 to create the food material. So basically, whenever there is a forest, it will maximally absorb the carbon from the atmosphere, and here's the maximum carbon which is there in the atmosphere is got removed in the process of photosynthesis, and due to this the effect of global warming get reduced. Okay, because the concentration of CO2, if it's increase in the air, it will be harmful from the every aspect of the life. Okay, so basically in the process of photosynthesis, if you plant the more and more trees in the social forestry program, it can do the more photosynthesis, it can absorb the more CO2, and due to the absorption of more CO2, the carbon is get removed from the atmosphere. Okay, now in the fight against the global warming effect, and these the tree play a very essential role by removing the carbon from the environment. So basically, removing the carbon from the environment is ultimately will result in the reduction of the global warming. Okay. Now see, the third type is the soil conservation. Okay. The third benefit of the social forestry is the soil conservation. You know, the soil erosion occurs once there is a no forest or the barren land. Okay. Barren land and the desertic land, these types of the land are literally responsible for the soil erosion, because soil, the fertile top layer of the soil will be taken away by the wind or the rainwater. So in such a case, if on such a barren land or the desert land, if you plant the trees, if you plant the trees in such a lands, then we can actually avoid the soil erosion, and in this particular process we can conserve our soil. Okay, and that is why the critical benefit of the social forestry is the soil conservation, because these particular trees which are planted in the social forestry, these tree roots will actually prevent the soil erosion by holding the soil at one place. Okay, they will these roots will hold the soil so tightly that it will not move due to the effect of the wind or the rain. Okay, and hence mitigating the negative effect of the soil erosion. So this is the third benefit of the social forestry, that it will conserve the soil. Now the fourth benefit is the health benefit. Of course, the forest provide the many types of the health benefits. The very first is the production of the oxygen. The healthy oxygen is produced from the forest. Then this healthy oxygen is very useful for the heterotrophic animal life, including the human beings. So whenever there is a forest or the high trees in the area, they will provide the very pure form of O2, and at the same time it will absorb the harmful CO2 from the atmosphere. So the right balance between the O2 to CO2 ratio is maintained due to this social forestry program, and hence the much of the stress or the anxiety which is created due to the non-availability of a pure oxygen or the large quantity of the CO2 within the atmosphere, this stress and the anxiety will literally be removed by the social forestry. So basically, if you plant more trees, we will have the fresh oxygen, we will have the less CO2, and this type of condition is very beneficial for the heterotrophic animal life, including the human being. Okay. Now see, when people are stressed, they usually take a walk to the parks as well as to the other nature trails for calming effect. Okay, this is the another benefit, that not only the fresh oxygen plus the CO2, but also there is a area which is created on which you can simply walk to get refreshed. Okay, so it can psychologically also affect you in a positive way. Okay, so these are all the health benefits which are given us to by the social forestry, and that is why it's the fourth benefit of the social forestry. Now consider the fifth one is the community enrichment. Now trees makes the neighborhood very attractive. Okay, now once wherever you find the large number of trees, this area will be really attractive for the human beings. Now an area with abundance of the trees are more likely to attract the newcomers than the area without the trees. So if you want to go to the any area, you will not select the barren or the desertic land, you will always select the land which will have the more trees or the forest like appearance. So the community enrichment occurs due to the social forestry. This is the fifth benefit of this kind of a forestry. Now the sixth one is the noise reduction. Okay, you see, noise is a bigger trigger for the anxiety and the stress. We all know that, right? Here, the tree reflect and absorb the sound energy produced due to the noise pollution. So basically, mitigating the effect of a noise pollution is also the characteristic feature of the social forestry. By reflecting or absorbing this sound energy, it can actually calm the nearby environment if there is a large quantity of the trees present. Okay, now it will also improve the air quality, and you know why? In the process of photosynthesis, the CO2 got got absorbed and O2 got released, and hence the large amount of O2 is present in the environment. It can really help to clean the air. Okay, so the air pollution is also got reduced due to these trees which are planted in the social forestry. So basically, here most of the people relates trees with the removal of the carbon dioxide from the environment. It is worth noting that trees also help in clean and improve the quality of the air. So whatever the dust which is coming along with the wind, that dust can be stopped by these particular trees. Okay, and hence the air will remain purified in that particular area. Plus the CO2 production at a large quantity is there, and hence all of these points are improving the air quality if you are living nearby to the forest. Okay, so social forestry having this all of these advantages, and hence government majority of the time promote the social forestry types of the programs. Okay, so basically here we have understood what do you mean by the social forestry. Then we have understood the different types of the social forestry. Then different types of the social forestry advantages we have also discussed here. Okay, so this is all about the social forestry.